Welcome once again to the Growth Mastermind group call, hosted every Sunday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. This week, we had the pleasure of speaking to Mr. Josh Orlinsky. He's an expert in the financial industry. He went over some different options and gave us some more detail and insight into different government aid options during this coronavirus pandemic. So just go over that briefly. He covered the PPP loan, the EIDL, the stimulus, as well as some other fantastic, useful information. Peter, what were some of your takeaways?
Well, first of all, I want to say that it was a great call. He has some very good points about how to get the loans. He gave us, different perspective as a financial advisor, which I thought is very useful, not only to hear from the government side, also to hear from a person that's going to represent us, the entrepreneurs. And I think he said very well about how what to expect, how much money to take, and I thought it's very useful that we learned that those money is based on um, your income, your revenue, and number of entrepreneurs and other important points that it's inside of that. Um, our secretariat that they use for you to get qualified. And as well, we learn that you have to have a certain amount of employers. We also learn about different other, I will say, um, options that you have there, except this stimulus packages and loans that the government offers, and as well the private ones, which I thought they're very cool. They're very great. And not to forget, I think he made some very interesting points about the credit cards and about the rents, how to, if you cannot afford to pay the rent, how to manage to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. He gave us some really specific information that could definitely benefit us all. So, all right, guys, grab a pen and paper and enjoy the call. We'll see you next week. All right, guys. So welcome once again to the Growth Mastermind group Zoom call, as you know, hosted every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time by Mr. Peter and myself, Tony. So, all right. So today we have Josh. So we always do like a quick little introduction. All right, guys. So Josh is a seasoned management consultant with close to a decade of experience in the financial industry. Josh has worked with over 120 corporations with annual revenues ranging from $1 to 900 million. Wow. All right. That's very cool. And the topic this is a great one, how to maximize coronavirus relief options. So as we know, there's a lot of different government aid or relief options, whatever you call it. So yeah, Josh is going to let us know how to maximize those options. So welcome, Josh.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for having me on. Yeah, I was hoping that today we could talk a little bit about all those different things that are going around that everybody's hearing about on the news, everybody's hearing about just, in a million different ways. And sometimes I find, at least with the clients that we have, that it gets really convoluted and it gets really tough to kind of understand, even as times go. Is that at one point you might have understood what's going on, and then now, six weeks later, it's kind of up in the air all over again. So what I thought we could be good to talk about is just all the different options that we have, and then maybe even do a question and answer session. So afterwards, if there are any questions that you guys have to ask, and also feel free in the middle to try to get my attention somehow on Zoom, and I'll unmute it so that we can take questions in the middle also. A little bit about myself and what I do is I am a management consultant. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's kind of like a generic term, almost like Band-Aid. Like you could use it for so many different things. There's so many different types of management consultants. But what we do ultimately is we advise companies, corporate executives, on how to do something within their business. So there's marketing management consultants, there's strategy, there's turnaround, there's a whole bunch of different types. What I do is two different things at my firm. So we have the management consulting side focused around growth consulting and strategy consulting together. For for an example, taking a company from $1 million or $5 million in revenue and figuring out a strategic and scalable way to get them to $20 million, $25 million in revenue, timelines, benchmarks, and executionary tasks on how to do that. And then also we have an independent boutique investment bank aspect of my company. So it's like I said, it's a twofold corporation. One does investment banking, one does management consulting. So with the investment banking side, just a quick example and kind of ideas what that means is companies will come to us and we will assist them in figuring out how to raise different types of money. So whether that be in the form of debt, which is loans or money that you have to pay back of some sort, or equity, which means money that people invest into your company and you utilize and give them a piece of the company for doing so. We find dollars from anywhere between, I mean, really small would be 150,000 all the way up to we're doing raises of 450 million right this second. So we have a lot coming through our company, and that's just a little bit about me, so you can kind of gauge like why I have any justification sitting in front of you guys telling you about these government loans, because something that my company really focused on, and something I'll talk to you guys just briefly about later on in this talk, is about pivoting. And my company through this time, just like all of us, had to figure out a way to do something that we've never done before, right? We all, in my company, we're always at clients. We are always in someone's office, in our office, hosting clients. So this, to say the least, was a really interesting, unique, uncomfortable situation that, you know, thank God we've figured out how to weather the storm, like I hope all of you have. But we pivoted into the capital side, not only because, as you guys are probably well aware, the markets really dried up, right? The markets got hit really hard. And what does that translate to? Number one, 36.5 million people don't have jobs, right? So that's a huge, huge problem and a huge deal that I'm sure everybody's trying to deal with and overcome, whether that be through your employees, to people you know, I hope not any of you guys. And also that means that investment dollars have dried up. So we had to figure out a way to take what we're doing and kind of just pivot it for a little bit of time. And what did we focus on? We focused on what we thought would be the lowest hanging fruit for us, which is the coronavirus issues that we're all facing, the economic stimulus package, the CARES Act that the government put into place, that I'll talk to you guys a little bit about, and just how to help people through that period of time. Because believe it or not, the government, whether you believe they do things right or whether you believe they do things wrong, doesn't matter to me, like for now. For now, I want to, you know, what they did for us as business owners, which I'm sure a good portion of you are or are trying to be, what they did for us was a good bridge, a good band-aid to what is happening right this second. And we figured out if we could become experts in that, we can help other people and bridge them through this time frame using the money that's offered from the government. So some of the issues that you guys might be facing as business owners, and is it fair to assume that the majority of people in here are business owners, Tony and Peter? Okay, good. I just don't, you know, I could pivot all of what I'm talking about right now to a different subject, but no, I figured you guys are all business owners, or most of you guys are business owners or aspiring business owners. And you could use some of these ideas and some of the things the government is giving you right now in order to maximize your potential to get through this, and to get through this equal or better than what you were doing prior to this. I know that that's a crazy thought, to be better than what you were prior to this. But if you utilize the strategies and the way that the government is kind of offering certain bridges for us during this time frame, you actually might be able to walk out of this in a little bit of a good position. Let's say not a bad position. Your company doesn't have to close. I pray none of you guys are dealing with facing, you know, that in the face. Although it's a reality for tons and tons of businesses, and that's why people call us, is to kind of help them through that time right now. So some things you guys might be facing: capital issues, meaning issues with keeping cash flow up, making sure things are going okay, making sure you have enough money to pay all of your bills. That's a big deal when you run a business, obviously. And right now, if you had to close, let's say you had a brick and mortar shop and you had to close, it's going to be a really big deal for you right now. And to understand how to access the capital that you need is something that I'll talk about today, with the government subsidies and everything the government's doing. Some workforce issues you guys might be having, some employee issues, whether that be furloughing your employees, which kind of means, in a very simplified way, means like asking your employees to take a leave of absence without pay. It's legal, it kind of sucks, but it's not firing your employees. It's asking them to take a break for a little while to help you and your cash flow for your business. There's layoffs that you can plan, unfortunately, but there are unemployment benefits that supplement a lot of that, and that's also part of what the government is trying to push into what we're doing here. Another workforce thing that we will talk about that can help you guys through this is the PPP. Everybody's heard, in the United States at the very least, about this thing called the PPP loan. It's going around everywhere. We'll talk about that, what that means, how that is effective, and how you can utilize that and actually even make it so that it's free money. I know that there's no such thing in the world as free money, but right now they are actually giving you a chance to have a forgivable loan, what's called the PPP. We'll talk about that, and I'll definitely answer any questions you guys have about that. And also economic injury disaster loan, we'll talk about a little bit later. Inventory and supply chain issues is stuff that I can imagine some people are facing problems about, and we can talk about that just a little bit. Some things like the government restrictions that they're putting on us. Down here in South Florida is where I am. I'm right outside of Miami. I'm in North Miami, actually, and we are opening in they're calling the phase 1 of our program on Monday, right? So to be aware of that, and how am I going to reach out to my customers, and how am I going to let everybody know, that we're going back into the office on Monday or something along those lines. We'll talk about how to be aware of all of the government issues that are going around. And then obviously pivoting, and how are you guys pivoting? How can you potentially pivot in your own marketplaces to actually get through this thing, sell something that can be valuable within your market to the time frame that we're going through. With that being said, talking a little bit, we'll start off with the one that probably most people are thinking about, which is capital. And Eugene, I see that your question's coming in. I will talk about the PPP in just 1 second and answer your question. But the first topic we are actually talking about is the PPP loan. Okay, so the PPP loan is part of the CARES Act that the United States government put into motion, I believe sometime around April. I think that the first day that it went into effect was April the 3rd of this year. And the PPP loan is very specific to employees. And I had a question from Eugenia that said, do you have to have an official payroll to qualify for the PPP loan? And Eugenia, that's a great question, because in order to qualify for the PPP loan, you do have to have W-2 employees, okay? You have to have a history of W-2 employees. Now, that could mean that you had a history of W-2 employees from February. That could mean that you had a history since March. But you have to have, before this whole CARES Act went into effect, you have to have W-2 employees up until that point in time, okay? And they will ask you to submit certain things. They're going to ask you to submit 941s. If you don't have 941s, are just in case are the statement to the federal government for how much you paid in payroll taxes. They'll ask you for those documents, whether it be, for my company, I had a payroll history from January 1st to December 31st. And actually, that was my most expensive payroll. So they took that, and I sent them all my 941s. I sent them all these different things that they were asking for payroll registered. And then what they did is they took an average of that period of time. Okay, they took an average, whatever that was. Let's say it was 20,000, 30,000, doesn't matter. But they took that and they multiplied it by 2.5. Okay, that calculated my PPP loan. Okay, so again, they take a period of time. It could be January 1st, 2019 to December 31st, 2019. It could be the last 3 months of the year. Last 3 months of this year, meaning January 1st to March 31st they can take, or if you're brand new in your W-2, you can just send them what you have. And then it's kind of more convoluted because you have to work with your bank and work with the people that kind of are issuing your loan to calculate what it is. And there was an issue that we had. The PPP money ran out the first round within 13 days. In 13 days, they had 1.2 million applications approved, and they ran out of all the money, okay? Now, with that being said, that was a huge problem for me because I had applied for about 30, 40 PPP loans for other companies, and I might have received 10% of them. And I was really worried, and the US government then 2 days later, 4 days later, whatever it was, issued more money. So don't worry, if you haven't applied, you can still apply for the PPP loan if I'm not mistaken. I don't know what happened at the end of last week, but PPP loan is still there. The way that you apply for the PPP loan is through the bank that you use or through a small bank that is around you. Okay, so if you have a small bank down here in South Florida, there's tons of them. If you're anywhere in the country, you can find a bank, whether it's one of the big ones, Wells Fargo, Chase, SunTrust, BB&T, whatever it is. They all have a way to apply for the PPP. You can apply through Cabbage loans, as you probably have heard those kinds of loans online. There's tons of places. So I would encourage you, if you haven't had the PPP loan and you have the ability to have the PPP loan, go through and apply for it, because this is the loan that is what they call forgivable. Oh, thank you, Susie. Yeah, Wells Fargo ran out. I didn't know that on the second round they have ran out, but I knew on the first round Wells Fargo ran out in like 12 hours of money. I was applying with a company of mine. They opened it up Saturday morning, and by Saturday, later in the afternoon, they had ran out of all their money. It was crazy. Wells Fargo has, all the big banks, I'll tell you, has been a pretty big problem with the PPP loan. It's been chaotic to say the least. But the PPP loan is so in demand because it's the one big loan that's forgivable. Okay, so that means that you, just like it sounds, you don't have to pay it back. Okay, but there's certain parameters where you don't have to pay it back. Okay, the PPP loan is earmarked to save people's jobs. Okay, so to save people's jobs, they want very specific things for you to use it on. Now, do you have to use it on that? No, you don't have to. You can use it for anything you like, really. I mean, you can really go and use it to go buy a car, or you used to be able to. Now you have to sign a lot more paperwork because of all of the things. I'm sure you heard that Shake Shack took money and Ruth's Chris took money and all these companies took money. So now they've tightened up the restrictions. But you have to use this money for payroll, okay? And for payroll, that means 75% of the money. Let's say that you get $10,000, right? You get $10,000, $7,500. Doesn't have to, but has to go to payroll in order for it to be forgiven. So 75% of the money has to be used for payroll for it to be forgiven. As long as 75% is used for payroll, you can use the rest on rent, you can use the rest on utilities, you can use the rest on, you know, whatever it is. But 75% of it has to be sent to payroll. So if you apply for 10,000, get 10,000, 7,500 of that has to go for payroll. It's forgiven. What happens if not? Okay, what happens if you don't use $7,500 of that 10,000 they gave you? Okay, all that happens is they'll give you up to what you used, and then everything else converts into a 1% loan. For I believe that it's 1 year. Okay, so it's a 1 year, 1% loan, which has a 6-month period of time where you don't have to pay anything back. Okay. I think that that's pretty much the well-rounded scope. And again, guys, any questions that we have, you can either ask now or save it till the end. But the PPP is pretty important, at least in the United States. I do understand that there are people outside of the United States, and I apologize that I don't have a full wealth of knowledge about all of that. But I do know that every developing country and every really heavy hit economy country is doing something to assist their companies, assist their businesses. The second type of loan that's out there right now is the economic injury disaster loan, the EIDL loan, another very popular, very media-driven loan right this second. That is still available as well. Okay, now that one you're going to be, if you applied right now, you'd be sitting at the end of a very long list, but you could still apply if I'm not mistaken. Again, I haven't applied in probably a few weeks at least for one of these, for one of the companies I run, but it can't hurt to go on and look if they're still taking applications. If you do have an application in already, awesome. And there's going to be a few things that are going to be really important to watch out for that will allow you to understand if you are probably getting this loan. So just really quickly about the economic injury disaster loan. Part of the CARES Act as well. It has earmarked less money, but less company, but it's a little bit different for individual companies. Sorry, question coming in from Jonathan was, is the $10,000 loan I applied for in the SBA, is that the same? So I'm not 100% sure, Jonathan. It's very possible. With that, with the EIDL, there was up to $10,000 that was forgivable, okay? Another one of these forgivable loans. But that's just a portion of the money that you're technically should and supposed to receive. This money is not based on, what's most important is this money is not based on anything really, but the fact that you have what's called economic injury. Every one of us, most likely as a business owner, can prove some sort of economic injury right now, unless you're just like a hospital staffing company, right? Maybe you can't prove that, but I'll tell you guys, I got quite a significant amount of money for a nursing staffing company that staffs nurses at hospitals. So anybody really can apply for this loan, okay? You go on the SBA website, economic injury disaster loan is pretty easy to find. And what it is, it's just a loan that is for 30 years, okay? 30-year loan, it was up to $2 million, okay, up until last week. Don't ask why, I don't even know the answer just yet. I'm still researching. It was up to $2 million. Now it's the maximum loan you could get is 150 grand. Okay, still depending on the size of your corporation can be valuable. It is based on your need though. So let's say you're doing $2 million in sales every year, and then somebody else is doing $200,000 in sales every year. The offer that you're going to get is different. But you can still apply. You can apply if you're doing $10,000 a year of sales. You could still apply for this loan, okay? And the way that they determine what the forgivable portion is by how many employees you have again. So let's say you have anywhere between 10 and over employees, you automatically get $10,000 forgivable. You just get to put it into your bank account. You have no need to actually take that money. You can just apply, get that money in your bank. I'm sorry, no need to give it back. You can apply, get it in the bank, 10 grand, up to 10 employees or more. But if you don't have 10 employees, if you have one employee, then you get $1,000. It's $1,000 per employee, and anything above 10 employees, you get 10,000 flat. Okay, and that's just a deposit. Just for applying, it's almost like, hey, thank you so much for applying. Here's $10,000. It's not as simple as that, but you guys can consider it that way. And then you get into a really long waiting list. And that waiting list is for the actual loan. Because this loan, in terms of loans, and believe me, like I do a lot of loans before coronavirus timeframe. There's no loan out there in the world like this loan is. Okay, this loan is 3%. It's 30 years, no balloon payment, all these crazy terms that's happening right now. But I mean, it's like one of the best loans you can ever get. So I would encourage everybody who is looking to get through this time, maybe use some money for economic injury for real. But if you also have plans that you are hoping for in order to utilize funding prior to coronavirus, this is a good loan to try to apply for anyway. But with that being said, you get on a really long waiting list. Everybody's still on the waiting list. For example, my company applied for the economic injury disaster loan the hour that it became live on the internet, basically, and that was like at 2 in the morning on a Wednesday night or something along those lines. And I got my paperwork, and I still haven't gotten my money. Okay, and I signed off on all the money, and they still haven't given it to me. But I still can. I'm waiting on it. Somebody just asked about 1099s. Eden, I think. So I apologize if I pronounce your name wrong. So 1099s, it depends what you're asking. If you're asking for the opposite side, like can you apply as a business owner if you have 1099s? The answer is no right now. If you are a 1099 contractor, there is a part of a stimulus package that you can apply for as your own business. So there's two different ways to think about it. For your PPP, no, it has to be W-2. If you are an independent contractor doing work you can apply for an independent contractor loan. And yes, for the EIDL, yes, you can. You can apply as long as you have a business, as long as you have an LLC that generates revenue, has tax returns, anything along those lines, you can apply. And Susie just said that she applied in March and she got her offer on Friday. So that's how long that it's taken most people to get these EIDLs. Okay, I was fortunate, I got mine. I got an offer, but still don't have the money. So it's a process, and it takes about 3 weeks or so, just from the time you sign your contract to even getting funded. After that, it's a really good deal. And I would encourage anybody who has long-term business aspirations to at least go after it, because it's really cheap money. So we'll talk about any questions you guys have about that. You can feel free after we kind of get through this. There's an SBA Express Disaster Bridge Loan in some states still available. Okay, in Florida, I don't know, I believe that it's not available anymore. The funds are dried up, but there's a bridge loan that you can apply for. I think it's a micro loan, and I think it's up to 25 grand. You can, again, go on the SBA website. It's right there, right in front of you. And you guys can apply for an express bridge loan. That one's a little less forgivable, a little less glamored, I guess would be the word, but it's still there in case you need to utilize all of these different capital resources. And then obviously the last one that individually you guys should potentially look into, and I'm not an individual business finance person, so I apologize, I won't be able to answer so many personal stuff. I only do corporate finance, but I do know that you guys all qualify in the United States as tax-paying Americans for the stimulus check, unless you make a certain amount of money. Okay, so anything above, if you're married, above $200,000, you don't qualify for this. I hope you guys are all in that bracket, but let's say that you're not. You do qualify for the personal stimulus loan, and that, again, is forgivable. It's not even a loan. It's just a check that you get in the mail, or you get it directly into your bank account even. And that loan or that deposit you can check on the IRS website. So you can even just Google check on my stimulus check if you haven't gotten it. Okay, and all you have to do is you have to, on the government website, type in your social security number, type in your address, boom, it'll tell you what the status is of your personal check. If you have received it, awesome. If you haven't received it, they will most likely tell you why you haven't received it, or that it's on the way, or that you can type in your bank account to get this money directly put into there. If you miss the window of where you type in your bank account, because I did read last week that last Wednesday, I think might have been the last day to type in your bank information for a direct deposit, you'll still receive an automatic check in the mail. Okay, so everybody, and that's $1,200 per adult. So for me, I'm fortunate, I'm married, and I have a daughter. So my wife and I both got $1,200 each, and my daughter received $500 as a dependent. So as a family, you can utilize this to get yourself through this time, because obviously this time is a little tough for everybody. And that's kind of the capital sources that are really available to be used right this second, that are just specific to the government, right? The government is offering tons and tons of different options. Those are really the options for business owners. If you're a government contractor, there's other options. If you're a healthcare worker or a healthcare provider, like a doctor's office, there's other options. But for now, I'm just gonna focus on the idea that I'm imagining that we're all just business owners looking to grow businesses, right? And those are really the big options that you have right this second in order to maximize the potential to get through this time, and honestly beyond, because you can use this, invest it in the proper way, get through all of this craziness that we're going through, and then get yourself back on regular footing once we all get back into the normal swing of things. I know that that's a lot to digest. I'll actually open up. I don't know how questions normally work, but if anybody has questions, please feel free to type it in the chat, or just type that you have a question and I'll unmute you about that, or else we can go on to, just additional things you can keep in mind. But does anybody have questions specifically on those loans?
I had a quick question, actually. So if a company has furloughed their employees, in that case, they would not be eligible for the PPP loan?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you, Tony. I definitely forgot to talk about that. So if you furloughed all your employees, you technically still do qualify, because remember, it's all based on history. And they have 10 million applications to deal with, right? So what they're going to look at is the history. Now, to make it forgivable, one thing that I did forget is that you have to have the same amount of employees when you took the money than when you go to apply for the forgivable portion. So if you have 2 employees, great, wonderful, you can apply for the PPP. 2 W-2 employees, you can apply for the PPP. But then at the end of your 2-month period, because they check it after 2 months, they're going to say, okay, great, Tony, we want to make sure that we can give you this money forgivable. Show me your payroll register, show me your bank statements, whatever they're going to ask for, which we all actually don't fully know what they're going to ask for yet, because most people are going to get it before 941 is filed. So they're probably going to ask for your payroll registers from your payroll company. As long as it still shows 2 employees, it's still forgivable. If it shows 1 employee though, it automatically creates it so that it's not a forgivable loan. So that's one of the most important things to keep in mind. If you said 7 employees, you have to submit with 7. If you said 5, you have to submit the rest after the 2 months with 5. So that's a good question. Thank you. I'm sorry I forgot to explain that. Anybody else with a specific question about these specific loans?
But I did have one more question. I had a little list of questions here. I think you, as you continue, kind of answered some of those questions. But one more that I had, to have the PPP loan, the forgiveness, what are the steps that you have to do, or how do you make that forgivable, the PPP?
Yeah, like you asked at the beginning, it was just, you have to have the same amount of employees. That's a given, and you have to spend 75% of the money on your payroll. And actually, if you have independent contractors that are individuals, like sole proprietors, you can use those people in your calculation and your benefits in the calculation. So 75% has to be W-2 employees, independent contractors, employee benefits, and that can all reach that 75% threshold. So those are really the 2 main requirements that you have to go through in order to make your PPP loan forgivable. And you have to apply for your PPP loan through a bank. That's the most important thing, because you can't apply for it just through the SBA. You have to go to your bank. If you have online banking, you've probably seen it. They've stuck it on everybody's online banking. We just have access to probably 15 different types of banks that that all have the PPP loan somewhere on there, if they are an eligible PPP lender. Okay, so all the big banks are, and so on and so forth. I hear that W-2s and 1099s have to be U.S. based. Can you confirm, Igor? Yes, they do have to be based in the United States. So that is something that's important. If your W-2 employees are outside the United States, they don't qualify. They ask you specifically on your application, are these employees positioned here in the United States? So it's a good question as well.
Can I ask you also a question?
Yes, please.
What if we use like companies like Upwork? The company basically it's a United States based, but the person that you're gonna use them basically can be anywhere in the world.
That's going to be up in the air, actually. So I'm not 100% sure of that answer, because the truth is that Upwork is an independent contractor platform, right? And you're paying individuals to do specific work as if you had an independent contractor sitting in, right 10 minutes away from you doing the work. But I'm not 100% sure about Upwork, because you definitely can't use it in your calculation. Okay, first and foremost, that's for sure. If you're going to apply for the loan, that's not going to be allowed to be included in your application. So you have to use your application with W-2 employees. But if you're talking about including it in the calculation for forgiveness, it's interesting. I'm actually intrigued to see how they're going to use it, because I'm going to include it. If I was working with you, I would say, yes, we are going to include all of the Fiverr people or all of the Upwork people in my calculation, and I'm going to submit it to my bank. And I would do that even if I was within the threshold already, most likely. But it's going to be interesting what they're going to say coming back, because it was paid, if I'm not mistaken, I've used Fiverr before, and you pay directly to Fiverr, right? And then Fiverr or Upwork pays the independent contractor. And Fiverr itself is not a sole proprietor. Fiverr is a decent sized company. So that's what's going to be unique in that whole point, in that time frame. Anything else, Peter?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So yeah, the other thing that I was trying to figure out, like we know that about these two loans, the PPP and the emergency loan, disaster loan. What about the rest of the loan that are available? And if it's any loan outside of this one, they're not necessarily from the government, but we can use them. And what is going to be the difference between them and what we have from the government?
Sure, Igor, you were cutting out just a little bit for me at the end, but I think I got the gist of the question. Is that Igor, as Peter's basically asking, I believe, is if you use up all of these loans, even let's say you apply for and get all of them, is there anything else out there? You can still always use the normal traditional loans that everybody has probably heard of, potentially even applied for. They're actually back to being normalized for the most part right this second. They're a little more picky about who they're lending to right now, meaning banks or private lenders or private investors, whoever it is that you're looking for to borrow money from. But everybody is back up to normal. At one point, it wasn't that way. At one point, I was getting turned away from a lot of lenders with the market being down and with everything at the beginning of coronavirus. But they're pretty much back to normal operations now. So there's still, you can even apply for an SBA 7A loan, right? You can still even apply for those. That's an SBA-backed loan. 350K is insured to the bank that lends it to you. Still really good rates. You can still go and apply for that. There's lines of credit that you can still apply for. You can still utilize your credit cards. I would not suggest putting everything that you can on your credit cards, but you can still apply and get credit cards. You can still, I don't suggest this either, you can still get merchant cash advance loans. If anybody doesn't know what that is, that's probably a good thing first and foremost, but if you do know what that is, it is a very, very high interest advance or a loan on towards your company, normally within the 25 to 45% interest rate, reserved for, yeah, it's really heavy, and it's reserved mostly for people without good credit, because most of these loans that we've been talking about, I apologize, I didn't preface this, they will look at your credit, but with the government ones, it's way less scrutinized. So it's like significantly less scrutinized. They're probably going to disqualify you with under a 600, 550 credit score for any of these types of loans, keep in mind. And you might have to turn to something like a line of credit if your bank allows it. But again, those again are based on your credit. Merchant cash advance loans, they don't care about your credit. They care about your deposits. So if you have over $15,000 of deposits a month or $10,000 of deposits a month, they'll potentially give you an advance on your money, a merchant cash advance loan. I would almost ask is that use those in the very last case scenario. Don't ever think that is a great option off the bat, because, and I apologize to anybody here who has taken one, and if you're satisfying them, awesome. But they just are very heavy, and they cost a lot of money. The cost of capital is extremely expensive. So it's at minimum 25. I mean, if you have great credit and a great broker and a great, everything, all the above, I have gotten the lowest I have ever gotten was 13% on the money for a merchant cash advance, and that's either weekly payments or monthly payments. So, I'm sorry, weekly payments or daily payments, excuse me. So they take money out of your account every day or every week, auto draft. Okay, so those are the most, if you have really bad credit and you have no other options really, but you can still get all of the traditional loans, lines of credit, investment money, everything's kind of rolling back into the normal swing of things. And then, sorry, Igor, I saw that you said, as a business owner, can you include yourself into the PPP calculation? Yes, you can. But you have to do it in the form of as a 1099 contractor or a W-2 employee. It's not your distributions. Okay, so if you take distributions out of the company and just whatever, that doesn't get included into the PPP calculation. You have to actually pay yourself in a check or an independent contractor or something along those lines. But yes, it can be included in the calculation and into the 75% payback. Any other questions on that? On the loan side?
No, sorry, Peter, go ahead.
I was just trying to say, like, now that we know, how to take the loan, what we have to do to actually make sure we, like we keep the most of it, and like how to maximize this money. What is the things that we're gonna be allowed to spend on, except the fact that we already learned about the fact that we have to pay our employees. But let's say, in case you don't have employees, or even if you pay the employees, how what else we have to do to make sure that we're gonna keep most of it, and let's say like that, we return less of it.
I would say to familiarize the best that you can with all of those regulations that we kind of went through is like making sure to trend yourself at all times towards 75%, right? For the PPP. What I do is I build all of our clients calculators, right? So if we get you the PPP loan, we go and we build you a calculator, and then we actually keep up the calculator for the client. So like saying like we have 4 payrolls left, this is our average payroll, are we trending towards forgiveness? So just kind of like I would say to answer that to the best of my ability is because with economic injury disaster loan, there's not really like, there are stipulations on how you have to use it, but there's not like you can't use it on wood. You can't use it on this, that, or the other. It's more like how you use it and how you report it. So economic injury, you can kind of use for anything other than like taking it and lending it out to somebody or whatever else. And then PPP has the very specific, I have to have the same amount of employees. I have to spend it 75% on my payroll. Other than that, it's kind of fair game. And they're not going to, especially if you have cash in your bank account before that. So, if it's all tied together, which it should be, because it's most likely going into your operating account and your payroll is most likely coming out of that account. As long as it's all there, it's kind of really, it's not as strict as you would think, as long as you make sure to hit those very specific parameters. If you have those, if I have the specific parameter of the 75%, the same amount of employees, and then with your economic injury disaster loan, you can't move out of the country without telling them, and you can't do a few different things. You have to have very clean bookkeeping because they're going to ask for reports at the end of the year and stuff like that. Other than that, you can kind of use it how you need to in order to grow your business or in order to stimulate your business through this time period. So it's just about really being on top of it and knowing what you're doing before you take it. Know what you're taking. Economic injury, know what the parameters are. Read the contract. My partner, Ron, who I actually think is here, he made us read the contract like 3-4 times over before we took the money because it's government money. Always keep that in mind. It's like, when you go to the DMV, it's not a pleasant experience, right? And the same idea when you go through the SBA, it's not a great and pleasant experience. And then they have requirements that you have to be very strict by. But other than that, it's kind of fair game. It's kind of saying, hey, use this money to do what you need to do to make your business succeed. Because the whole point of this whole stimulus is not just because we want to give, not because the government wants to give free money. That's not the whole point of this. It's to actually keep the economy afloat. Because if they didn't do this, and if all 1/3 of U.S. businesses went under, it would be a really, really bad thing on a personal level. And we can get into debates about that for hours and hours about how deep the impact could go. And that's what the government was trying to do. So they're not going to be crazy. Also keep in mind is that they have millions of applications and applicants and people that they gave money to, and the SBA is just one small department of the government, right? So they're not going to be here just like strictly making sure that every cent goes in and out. And I'm not saying to do anything inappropriate. I'm just saying to understand that they want to see very specific things. If you check off their box, they're going to move on to their next applicant because they probably have, that officer probably has 400 applications to get through that week. You know what I mean? So it's just about being careful about how you use it within the parameters that they've already given to you very clearly.
Okay. And last question that I would like to ask you, because I see a lot of back and forth about this idea with the amount that you can take out. I mean, I saw people that are saying, oh, I'm going to max out $150,000 or I'm going to take this amount. Is there any limitation regarding the amount of money you can take out? And what is the criteria that you can actually qualify for certain amounts of money? So in that way, if it's going to be against, let's say, your own thing to take more, or is gonna not be a limit for that one?
Yeah, so it's a great question. Up until, like I said, last week, they were offering a significant amount more money. And it was kind of based on revenue, but more than anything, based on what you can pay back. And keep in mind, they're giving you a lot more than you normally would get as an offer, because the payback term, everything in lending is about the term and the interest rate. If the interest rate is low and the term is long, your payment is small. And you can kind of mess with those variations accordingly. But I apologize. I lost the train of thought with that. But the amount that you are going to get is based on the amount that you're going to be able to pay. Okay, so they were up to 2 million. Now they're up to 150 max. You're going to get an offer anywhere in between $1,000 and 150,000 apparently right now. Okay. Up to that 150,000, you can take anywhere in between. If they give you a 150K offer, you don't have to take the 150,000. You can take 2,000. You can take 5,000. You can take 40,000. It doesn't matter. It actually only matters that you don't take less than $1,000. Okay. But on the top of it, above 150K, you can't take that more than that. And I think that kind of answers that. And then I had one person, Jonathan, asked, he has an offer from Square Capital, which is his merchant account, or the other one is to apply for a small bank. I don't know if that's a question on which one to go through, but I would always say, as long as it's the PPP, there's very specific regulations that even the lender has to follow by. So if you already have an offer from Square, take the offer from Square. Because it's going to most likely be no different from the small bank. If you had two different options to apply with, I would apply with the small bank, because the small bank actually was allocated from the government very specific amount of money. They said, small banks, we are 100% approving, I think it was like $50 billion. Small banks are $50 billion they get. So apply through the small bank as opposed to one of your big banks. And I think that Square might even qualify for one of those small banks. But yeah, so I would say if it was between Square, if you have an offer for PPP, you might as well take it, because it's going to be the same thing as if you took it from a small bank. And then, yeah, is there any other questions about the loans specifically, or about any of those dollars that the government's offering?
Yeah, just one more question, and I really appreciate you being here this evening. It's really some great information. Just something that came to mind for people not living in the U.S. Do they get any sort of assistance or any ideas what they could do, or is it just something that really just depends, like country to country, or how does that work?
Yeah, I'll tell you is that I apologize, guys. I don't know so much about outside the U.S. other than the fact that you can't really get the U.S. offered dollars. So that you have Puerto Rico, yes. The territories of the United States, yes. You can apply and get that money. But unfortunately is that if you live in Colombia, I'm not 100% sure what you're offered in Colombia. I'm hoping that the government of Colombia or the government of Haiti, I think somebody might be from Haiti, but some of those governments I hope are offering similar stimulus relief packages. I know just through personal knowledge is that Israel is offering money to businesses in a similar fashion, very similar plan that the United States created, but I'm not 100% sure about the rest of the countries. And I do know that unfortunately, if you are not in the United States, and actually your employees are not but United States employees, you can't qualify for any of these types of funding. Now, I'm sure that you can qualify for traditional types of funding, like term loans and lines of credit and whatever else, but you're not allowed to qualify for these government stimulus CARES Act loans that I've been kind of talking about. But just really quickly, just because I know that there's I don't know how much time normally we go for, but I was trying to keep it to about an hour or so. There are other types of relief that as individuals and business owners you can apply for. And I just want to say that so that just in case you guys can utilize that, because pretty much everybody can utilize these types of relief options. Excuse me. There's credit card relief options. So for example, we have a client who owes a good portion of money to American Express. And it was very manageable, and it's just in the normal course of business. It was over 100,000, it was whatever. And American Express is offering deferment on those payments right now, and 0% interest, and no late fees, and even no paybacks, or even if you want to cut your balance and then create a payment plan. Like American Express, this guy, let's just say he had $150,000 of credit card debt. They said, listen, you can keep your credit card open and we'll cut that debt right now and give you a payment plan for 3 years, $3,000 a month, okay, at 5% interest. So it was very low. So they'll take that, and you can call American Express, you can call Citibank, you can call Chase, you call anybody who you have a credit card with and say, hey, I'm a business owner, or even, to be honest, you can say, hey, I'm a person who has credit card debt personally, and I need some help. What can you guys do for me? And every single bank in the United States, every single bank, you can call them and they will give you some sort of relief, even if it's in a small term relief for yourself, whether that be no interest, no penalties, no fees, deferment on your minimum balance, whatever it is. So you can utilize that. There's also lender debt relief. So let's say you have a line of credit, or let's say you have a term loan from a bank, or whatever it might be. Let's say you have any money that you've already borrowed prior to coronavirus. You can call, and again, similar, you can call them, ask them for what their relief options are. They will put it on deferment. They'll put it on, no interest. They'll put it on minimum payments, payment plans, very similar to what I was saying about the credit cards. But if you had loans prior to this, you can call, take advantage of what they're offering. There are housing and rent relief and protections for renters in the U.S. CARES Act. Okay, so if you're having trouble paying your rent, if you're having trouble paying your landlord, if you're having trouble paying your mortgage, in the CARES Act, there are ways that you can utilize some of those benefits in order to help you through your rent protection, help you through your landlord issues that you potentially are facing because of this whole thing. So take that into account, and you can utilize all of this whether you need it or not. We all technically need it, right? We all need it in the long run of our lives and our businesses. It can't hurt to have zero payment on certain things, so you might as well look into it for yourselves, because the less that you can pay now, let's say you have all the money in the world to pay it, but let's say the less you can pay now, the more you can grow your business in the long run, right? So you can defer off and utilize the cash flow that you're saving in order to grow the company. And then there's personal debt forbearance too, which is, for example, if any of you all had student loans, automatically your student loans in the CARE Act went into forbearance. For example, I still have student loans. Don't ask why. Going to school here in the United States costs way too much money. We'll try to get that fixed, 10, 15, 50 years down the road from now. But all of that goes into forbearance, okay? So you don't have to pay any of that. You can call your car loan bank and ask for forbearance on your car loan. So anything that you already have debt-wise, you can call most likely, and specifics I can talk about on a case-by-case basis, more on a business level, to be completely honest with you, than on a personal level. But you can call and get as much forgiveness. And that translates just into my last point, into the planning of all of it. What I would encourage you all to do is what we do for all of our clients, right? What did they use us for as management consultants, as an investment bank during this time frame, was to plan on how the hell to get through this time, right? People were calling us frantic, not because we were growing their company perfectly, even though we do that also, but they were calling us to figure out how are we going to get through coronavirus. Okay, and it took a lot of planning, a lot of utilizing all the data that's out there about this time, and then executing on a strategy in order to get the company through this time frame and get the company out and even in a better situation after this all is done. So we've utilized the government loans, we've utilized all the forbearances, all the credit card forbearances, everything that we can in order to push everything out or get as much money in the door and plan accordingly on how to deal with the employees, on how to deal with the demand from your customers, on how to deal with the expenses that you usually pay, on how to talk to your landlords. So many of these things you can utilize just by getting knowledge and getting the idea of what's out there right now. You can use it to your advantage and grow your company and multiply your company, or even just get through this tough time that we're all going through together, because everybody in some way or another has been affected by this, whether it's minimally or tremendously. It's just a way that you can use all these different options available to you to make sure that you're doing okay through this whole thing. So with that, I'll just open up again for any questions that you guys may have, and we'll go from there.
Well, you've certainly answered me and Peter's questions, so it's your guys' turn now.
And honestly, if you don't have any questions, that just means that I explained it perfectly. So I'm really okay with that too. But I'm more than happy to answer everybody's questions, and anything that I can do to help, any information that you've been wondering. If I have the answer, I'll be free to share it with you.
And in the meantime, also, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, what will be the best way for them to contact you?
So if you guys wanted to get in touch with me or my company, and Matt, I'll unmute you in just one second. If you wanted to get in touch with me or my company, my name is Josh Orlinsky. You guys can see up on the Zoom call. My company's name is Equiturn, Equiturn Business Solutions. You can Google us. You can find us, equiturnsolutions.com. And you can always call the number on the website, whether it's our local number, which is there, or the office or the business number, and one of us can get you guys in touch with me. And just in case, if you guys wanted to take my personal email address, I'll type it in the chat for you guys all to see, and then you guys can have it ordered. If you need to text me, I'm always. If you need to email me, I'm always free for a call. I'm not always free for a call. I will always call you back no matter what happens, and I'm always available for any information that you guys are looking for, or if you need help applying, or you need a different type of loan, or you just want the strategy and give me your very specific situation of what you're going through right now. I would be more than happy to talk to you guys about what you're going through and how we can help, or how I can help. On a personal level, it's free of charge. On a phone call, it's free of charge. Or if you wanted to kind of go through the whole process, we have a team of people that work at Equiturn that are very, very knowledgeable in a ton of different areas: legal, marketing, finance, management, sales, operations. We have teams focused on all of those different departments. Matt, I'm going to unmute you for a second so you could ask your question, okay? Go ahead.
Hey, Josh. How are you?
I'm doing well. Hey, Matt, what's up? There you are. You moved around for a second. What's going on? Thanks for asking a question. What's up?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. I joined a little late, so don't mind me if it's a repetition.
That's okay.
First thing you said, for the CARE Act, if you're having trouble paying your rent, you can still take advantage of this. Is that right?
Yes, that is right. I forgot the exact. I'm sorry. I keep looking at my phone now because I'm texting because I have notes written down. I forgot what the actual portion of the act is called, but you can really Google it. Just type in on Google Housing and Rent Relief and Protection for Renters, CARES Act. And there's very specific things that you can do in order to push off your rent. First and foremost, landlords have very clear and distinct restrictions on, I know it's a bad word, but on eviction. They have very clear restrictions on eviction right this second. So you can look into all of that and kind of, again, utilize the information, gather as much information as you can, push it into your business so that you can utilize it. But yes, Google Housing and Rent Relief or Protection for Renters, CARES Act. It'll give you all the information on how to maximize that for yourself. And I'm going to put.
Okay. Is this more of a deferral, or there's actually forgiveness that there's going to be part of it?
Sorry, I was just making sure my email was typed right. But yeah, I believe it's more deferral It's not like the relief like PPP money is. It's not like free money kind of idea. But it is a little bit of relief and payment and protection for payment plans and such. But I would encourage you. I haven't done I'll be honest with you. I know that it's an aspect of the CARES Act. I haven't done so much of it, but you can Google it, and I'm sure that you can find very specifics to your company.
Okay, so when the other question I have, when you mentioned forbearance for the bank, your credit card debts, is it also same? It will be a deferral
For your credit card debt?
Yeah.
So credit card debt is based on a bank by bank basis, but they're not going to forgive your credit card debt. What they can do is, and Tony, oh, sorry, Tony, I've been typing it in here. Oh, you know why? Because I'm just typing it to Jonathan, I think. Jonathan's probably gotten it like 3 times, but I'll give it to you guys at the end. Just here, I'll write down a note so I don't forget. Just in case you guys want to write it down, and then you always can contact Peter, who has it as well. But I'm just going to write down a note so I don't forget to give it to you guys. So credit card debt, they will not forgive it, Matt, in its entirety, but they will put you on a very, very good payment plan in order to make sure that you can deal with it. And you could still use your credit card. You can still do everything as normal. And you can even add debt to the payment plan, and it won't increase the amount that you have to pay every single month. It'll just make it longer. Okay, but the payment plan longer. But you can defer it. You just can't forgive it. They're not allowing that just yet. I'll hope that in some time that's the case, and I'm building up, as much as I can. But no. It's possible it might happen. I doubt it, because there's a lot of bases that the economy is really built on, and to forgive so much money. For example, they've already, in the stimulus package of forgivable money, there's already something like close to $1 trillion. It's like $700 billion of forgivable money. So, they're already pushing the limit of that. And if they keep forgiving and keep forgiving and keep forgiving, it's going to be a lot more difficult.
Yeah, I have already, I knew I could get all the deferrals, but I was just wondering if there's any forgiveness in place. The last question I have is about I think you guys mentioned it already, about the personal stimulus checks.
Yes.
I know a bunch of people have received it, and I know bunch of people haven't received it yet. Do you happen to know, for the people that haven't received their parts, when they're going to receive?
I'll do you one better, Matt. I'll tell you how to find out for yourself how to do it. Yeah, so a lot of don't feel like you're the only one. Tons of people haven't gotten it. Okay. Again, I used an example. Maybe you're here or not. This whole process is a lot like waiting at the DMV. Okay, it's a really annoying, slow, not fun process. But at the end of the day, you'll get what you need done if you bring all the right paperwork. You know what I mean? So your stimulus check, you can go to irs.gov. Okay, what I would encourage you to do, I'm a big Googler, as you guys can clearly tell. Just Google check on my stimulus check, okay, or status of my stimulus check.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, I'm aware of the link. It's kept saying that they don't know if I'm eligible or not, or something like that.
So I don't know when was the last time you checked, but maybe you checked today, and if that's the case, then we can talk about. You can email me your specific situation. I can tell you why it's happening. If you made over X amount of dollars last year, or on your last tax return, that could potentially be why you're being pushed out. Okay, so I'm looking at you. I'm like, hey, maybe this guy is single. He made a good amount of money. We don't have to say it out loud, but I'm just saying, maybe you made a good amount of money. You pushed yourself out of that qualification. If it's not the case, then you're going to most likely get it. And their IRS was going through a glitch for a while. Even for me, I had the same problem happen for forever. It was telling me, oh, you're not going to get your stimulus check. You're not going to get your stimulus check, whatever. And then I was able to figure out, I don't know what happened. It opened up, the glitch opened, and I was able to type in my bank information and get the stimulus check that I was looking for. But there are qualifications. So for married people like myself, you can it's up to 200,000 in cumulative household net income. that will disqualify you. I think up to, I think it's like 100,000 if you're a single person, that will disqualify you.
And the last question: Do you know if they passed on the law for the increasing the amount for the kids? I heard it was
Not that I'm aware
they were
of.
going to increase it for 1,200. Is that right?
It's I don't know. I hope so, kind of, because I have a child. She got $500 last time, but regardless, I'm not sure. I know that regardless of what your political beliefs are, I don't need to know any of that, but I do know that Nancy Pelosi in the United States just pushed out another potential $3 trillion, which is more than the first round in a bill. Which means all of our great-great-grandkids will be paying for all of this one way or another, but whatever, we'll let them deal with it. But that's potentially in that additional $3 trillion that she's pushing out right now. But I haven't heard anything about that going into effect just yet.
Okay, yeah.
But I'm also, to be honest, Matt, I said at the beginning, I'm not a personal finance person. I'm very much heavy on corporate finance. So I don't really do very much personal stuff other than what I'm kind of sharing with you guys right now.
Okay. Well, that's all I have. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, I'm happy. And then just quickly, Monica asked that she would like to apply for a credit card with Amex. Call them directly. Amex, just so you know, Monica, is that Amex is a wonderful credit card if you have great credit. If you don't have good credit, you might not qualify for a card like Amex. You might want to go for potentially like Capital One. Will get you started or get you at a lower credit rating, but you could have stellar credit, and Amex will be the one that you would go with. You can't, there are some credit cards for Amex that you can't leave a balance on. You have to pay your payment every month. So if you're looking for something to put a balance on, you might want to look into different ways. Amex is the most customer-friendly credit card, I would say. Again, this is personal finance stuff. I'm not so great with personal finance, but for business-wise and in general, Chase and American Express seem to lead the pack with all of the benefits and everything that they offer and all the protection that they offer you. So Amex, the answer to the question is you can apply online also. You can literally choose the card that you want to apply for and apply directly online, and they'll approve you or deny you that minute. Or it'll take about a minute, but they'll approve or deny you on the spot, and they'll even tell you what your limit is at that point in time. So you can apply right on there. Yeah, and Tony kind of gave you guys a little more information in there. So sorry, I saw Eric gave another question. You're familiar, what best company for vendor financing programs? Eric, I apologize. I'm gonna unmute you if I can find you, Eric, and there you are. And then just tell me there's a lot of types of vendor financing, or if you're talking about PO financing or any of that such. Sorry, I'm gonna unmute you.
Okay, great. I'm curious if you're familiar with any companies like CIT, used to do a lot of it, Ford Motor Credit, GM Motor Credit, where they set up financing programs for vendors of various types of equipment, particularly some of the people that are in the tech space. Just wondering if you're familiar with, any companies that have vendor finance programs.
Yeah.
Private label financing for customers of vendors of certain type of equipment. And I'm thinking Tesla in particular.
Now, Tesla, for the answer is yes. There are tons and tons of vendor financing programs that you can get, and tons of independent vendors.
Right. That's why I was wondering, who are some people right off the top of your head you'd say, hey, these are pretty good guys? I
would probably email you a list if you wanted to email me, because there are so many. Like I don't know where you live, Eric, but I'm here in South Florida, in Miami. And
right, I'm in Washington.
In
Washington,
D.C.
Mm-hmm.
In D.C. Okay, cool. I used to live in Washington, D.C.
Oh,
actually.
Great.
Yeah. So just so happens, I can probably even, I used to do this exact work in D.C. I can potentially even point you in a direction of some companies that can help you. Just shoot me an email into the email, and I'll send you some some really good recommendations for PO
That'd be
financing,
great.
for vendor financing, auto financing, whatever you're looking for.
Okay.
Especially in Washington, D.C., I've worked with some guys like this guy, Quasi Rogers, over in Bethesda. He has a really nice shop over there called Federal
Okay.
National Payables, and he can help you out. So shoot me an email and I'll shoot you a list of DC specific ones that you can even have a meeting with and sit down and actually it's better
That'd
to
be
have a
great.
personal relationship with them anyway.
Okay, that's super. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
do
I'm
that.
going to put you back on mute, Eric. Anybody else? Sorry, I thought I saw some questions, but anything else that I've missed that there could be questions on, feel free. You can always email me. You can always give my company a call, or, email is the best way. Sometimes I do get bogged down and swamped with emails. I apologize, but I will always email you back. It just might take a day or so. But any other immediate questions that come to mind at this time? And if not, always feel free to email me, shoot me, just tell me that you were a member of the Mastermind group and that you had this specific question you forgot to ask, and I'd be more than happy to shoot you the response.
Awesome,
Perfect.
Josh. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, we usually wrap it up around 9, and as usual,
Okay, cool. No, you should have told me. I would have been off of it.
No, man, that was awesome. You definitely shed some light and gave us some very great information. I know that was a little bit fuzzy on some certain things, and you kind of answered those questions for me and maybe for some others here as well. So
Awesome.
great stuff, man. I really, really appreciate you. I went ahead and I copied and pasted in your email address there once again, so we could see that. Guys, if for whatever reason you had to hop off early or you don't see it for whatever reason, if you're on your iPhone or whatever the case may be, reach out to Peter. Or myself. I'm going to go ahead and actually save this here to my laptop, so I'll get you Josh's email there. So, well, great, man. Well, sorry we went a little bit over. Definitely appreciate you once again. Again, excellent information. So, yeah, man. Thank you once again for being here.
Of course, guys. Thank you so much for having me. And again, feel free to
Thank
email
you,
me
Josh.
if you have any additional questions. All right, guys. Be well.
Yeah.
Get through this. Stay safe. I hope all of your families are doing well.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Peter,
thank you.
any
Appreciate
words?
it. Have a great night. Thank you.
Be well. Talk soon. Bye.
No,
Thank
I
you,
just
man.
want everybody to be happy and safe, and I know, like, do the best in these times to strive, even if we are pushed to certain things. Okay.
All right,
That's
guys.
all.
Thank you so much. Y'all have a great evening, and we'll see you guys back next Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night, guys.
Thank you. Bye.